Obviously, pretty gutted about the decision. We thought it was going to go our way, but it certainly is proven that there was no way to win this through the courts. Wish someone had told me that beforehand. But how did it get so dark so fast? My penis was oscillating between extremely sensitive and borderline traumatized. Suddenly, all over the water, heads were bobbing up, singing to her. Oh, a seal opera.
Okay, so it's been a while, but today marks the return of a channel favourite, Prince Harry.
The decision has been a surprise as well as not a surprise.
Okay, so just very briefly, for those of you who don't know why Prince Harry is back in the news, it's because he's done another exclusive interview, this time with the BBC, where he is again airing his grievances.
Another apocalypse might be coming.
This time about having lost an appeal against the UK government's decision to remove his security detail, his round-the-clock police assistance.
More proof that the universe had a wicked sense of humour.
That he would have been entitled to as a working member of the royal family. But of course you'll remember, most of you I'm sure, that a few years back, Prince Harry and his lovely wife, Meghan Markle...
Loud, dark, drunk.
...decided that the UK and the royal family were too racist and stuff. And they went off to live in California to mingle with the stars.
Calm before the shitstorm.
And, you know, that way they wouldn't have to do so many royal duties, you know. They wouldn't have to go around cutting all those ribbons and shit.
It would take electric shock therapy to get those images out of my head.
They would just get a deal from Spotify, where Meghan would...
These are the types of foods I would eat. Tamales, gourmet sabzi, larb, matzo ball soup, adobo.
Well, do whatever Meghan was doing there. And a deal from Netflix where they would once again tell the world how racist everyone was in the UK and in the royal family without really giving any details. And then there was Harry's memoir, of course, which did very well too. So you would think, and I would think, you know, this is just me, I would think that, fair enough, you know, if I could get $200 million out of Netflix and Spotify and and get a ghostwriter to write an autobiography for me, and then I'd never have to cut any ribbons or anything ever again, look, I'd be the first to say, yes, please, okay? What I wouldn't do is then expect to have a security detail the likes of which Saddam Hussein would blush at.
We're going to be hunted.
Every time I came back to the UK, I'd pay for it myself. Like they do, by the way. Harry and Meghan spend an estimated $2 million a year on security, on private security. But every time they come back to the UK for a party or something, or some silly charity event, you know how much we hate charity on the Daniel Boland show. Every time they come back, they expect the taxpayers to fork out for their bullshit. Okay? And I'm not having it. Now, having said all that, that's not the only reason I'm making this video. I love Prince Harry. Okay? To me, Prince Harry is a very special breed of spastic.
Bring on the end of the world.
Right? He's the unintentionally hilarious breed of tard. Okay? No matter how grave, no matter how dark everything is to him, it always sounds hysterical to me.
Apocalypse.
And that's what we're going to focus on today, the hilarity. Let's get into the video.
Who's Daniel Boland? Oh, Daniel Boland, this is a heavy hitter. Do you guys know who this is?
Yeah, for the time being, it's impossible for me to take my family back to the UK safely.
Okay. See, this is the thing I really love about Harry and Meghan, but particularly Harry, because he does far more of this stuff, to be honest. It's this idea that he says something like that. There's absolutely no way I can envisage bringing my family back to the UK. That people, he thinks that people are listening to that and going, oh God, oh no, something must be done. I mean, I think most people's reaction, certainly my reaction when I hear that is, oh, all right, well, stay in California then, that's fine. I mean, you've got millions of dollars. You do whatever makes you happy. If you don't feel safe in the UK, don't come back to the UK. I don't know. It's not, there's bigger things going on in my life. I guess this is what they call what do they call it now? Main character syndrome.
What about the security arrangements that were in place made you feel it would be unsafe for you and your family?
Everything. Because in beginning of 2020, I was scored the highest as far as risk was concerned. And then overnight, I was reduced to the lowest without actually going through the risk management board. So one does question how that is even possible and also the motive behind that at the time.
All right, Harry, I've had it up to here with your BS, okay? Look, I don't want to get too bogged down in the details. The Lord knows the Daniel Boland Show ain't a detail-oriented channel. But this is a point which Harry contradicts himself on throughout the interview. It's really annoying, to me at least. He's claiming here that back in 2020, the royal household or the UK government or the two colluding together or whatever decided to reduce his risk assessment and therefore reduce his access to the security teams and the 24/7 police surveillance and protection, right? So he says that was a decision made overnight and he's questioning the motives, all right? He can't understand the motives. You'll see later on in the interview, he understands perfectly what the motives are, or at least in another part of the interview, he seems to understand perfectly well that the reason they reduced his access to some of the privileges of that are afforded to working members of the royal family, the reason they reduced his access to all the security teams was because he announced that he was leaving the royal family, and that was a way of keeping him in, he says. They were trying to trap him in a gilded cage, right? That's what he says later on himself in the interview, so he understands perfectly what was going on there, right? Which, by the way, I don't agree with either. I think it's just, if you're deciding you're leaving an institution, you don't get to keep the company car, right? Like anybody else, if you're leaving the thing that you're working for, if you leave a company, maybe you can't take the desk with you, okay? I don't know. So that, on the one hand, is something that he contradicts himself on. And then later on, he outright lies later on in the interview, or misremembers, and says that that they made this decision overnight before they'd even announced, before he and Meghan had even announced they were going to leave the royal family. That's a lie. I checked on ChatGPT. All right, Harry, I trust ChatGPT more than I trust your, whimsical ayahuasca battered, misrememberings. All right, frankly. According to ChatGPT and according to the news articles I've looked up, they announced they were leaving the royal family. He and Meghan announced they were leaving the royal family on the 8th of January 2020. So it was a response to that. It was right at the beginning of 2020 they announced they were leaving, and as a response, the royal household, or the UK government, or the two colluding, decided, all right, you don't get to keep all the shit, if you're swanning off to California, or maybe they hadn't announced that yet, but they were certainly saying they're not going to do any of the ribbon cutting anymore. So, do with that what you will. If you're going to leave, then maybe you don't get to, you don't get to keep all the crap without any of the responsibilities, right? I mean, it's obvious.
Some of the British tabloid press did a very good job in campaigning to have our security removed by quoting figures such as £20 million. Right, and through this disclosure process, I've seen constituents in the UK write to their MP saying, I don't want to, as a taxpayer, I don't want to pay for Meghan and Harry's security. Those figures are obviously grossly exaggerated by about 18, 19 times.
God damn it, they've been misled again. Oh, if only there was some way, Harry, that you could speak to those filthy council estate dwelling yobbos, you know? If only they knew it only costs about £1 to £2 million of taxpayers' money a year to give you round-the-clock security, Harry. You know, I'm sure that if they knew, you would have a private army of feral pit bull terriers on your doorstep before you could say Tommy Robinson, because of all the donations that would come flooding in from those scumbags, frankly.
But it comes down to impact, and it comes down to the reputational impact of the UK if that person or those people are injured on UK soil. But apparently for me, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'd say that's about the size of it, Harry. It's not that anyone wants anything bad to happen to you. It's that they just don't care that much. You know, it's not our problem. It's nobody's problem. You don't do anything for anyone else. You're just living your life. You've got plenty of money. Sort your own problems out. That's all anyone's saying, really. That's it.
You've spoken very openly about the fact that you think you've been punished for leaving the monarchy. Who specifically do you think is trying to punish you?
I don't think that anymore. Now I know that it was, security was used as leverage.
But I thought you didn't understand the motivations for taking your security away. But now you say that it's leverage, which, by the way, I again, must insist, do not agree with. And I'm going to use the same analogy again. Imagine I decide I don't want to work for a company anymore, and then they tell me I can't keep the company car, and I turn around and go, oh, I see. Leverage, is it? You're trying to keep me shackled to you. No, you just can't keep the stuff. All right? That's all.
And I think what really worries me more than anything else about today's decision, depending on what happens next, is that it's set a new precedent that security can be used to control members of the family. And effectively what it does is imprison other members of the family from being able to choose a different life.
Look, I get it. I'm moving on to work for a bigger company where I get loads more money than I get here, and I can probably afford my own car. Sure, maybe they'll give me a load of free cars. Who knows? But that's not the point. I will not be able to sleep at night knowing that I have set a precedent, a worrying precedent. It's a question of principle, really. I'm going to keep the car because, really, I don't want anyone else, and that's what this is all about. I don't want anyone else feeling trapped by this company, feeling that they can't leave the company because they'll take the nice car away. It's just not on.
I think if you strip away all the noise of everything that's been said by other people and all the noise that's been created around this, if you strip that all away, I think what people will hear is that the only thing that I've been asking for throughout this whole process is safety.
I love it when people say, strip away all the noise. That usually means, I find, don't listen to any of the, compelling evidence or the other side of any of the stories. Basically, what you need to know is they stole my car.
Both when I was when I was part of the institution and when we left. And the important piece here, Neda, is, for me and my wife, well, I'm not sure how much I can say, but I can never leave the royal family. That is my family. That is my larger family. I left the institution because at the end of the day I had to. I didn't leave it in 2020. I left it in 2021. But security was removed in 2020.
Bollocks.
Speaking of your family, your father is ill with cancer. Will you continue to visit him alone without the family? Where does this leave things moving forward, the ability of your children to see their grandfather?
Life is a precious thing. and I'm acutely aware of the fragility of that. I can only come to the UK safely if I'm invited. And you know, there is a lot of control and ability in my father's hands. Ultimately, this whole thing could be resolved through him.
Yeah, that's the spirit, Harry. You know the score. Your father's the king, right? If he says that the peasants are going to have to pay for your round-the-clock security, it doesn't matter how unpopular a decision that is. It doesn't matter how much the great unwashed dislike you and your wife. If any of them dares to get in the way of the tyrannical whim of your father, the king, then off with their heads, frankly. You know, he should just say, "Hey, up to here, right? My son gets what my son wants."
So should Keir Starmer step in?
Yes, I would ask the Prime Minister to step in. I would ask Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, to look at this very, very carefully, and I would ask her to review Ravek.
Harry, you are so out of touch. You clearly have been out of the UK for too long if you think our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, and our Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, have time for Meghan Markle. That's so 2022. They've just watched Adolescence on Netflix. You know, they're trying to deal with the endemic tidal wave of skinny little white incel boys stabbing everyone to death up and down the country. All right? You know, you're going to have to do another Netflix thing if you want to convince Keir to take action.
You reject that it has nothing to do with the fact that you're no longer a working royal.
Whether I have an official role or not is irrelevant to the security needs that I would need.
The amount of classic automobiles I have in my private collection in California is irrelevant to the car needs that I need.
Let me rephrase that. Whether I have an official role or not is irrelevant to the threats, risks, and impact on the reputation of the UK if something was to happen.
Oh, another irrefutable point. The reputational damage it'll do to the UK if, God forbid, anything were to happen to Harry and Meghan. You know, that would be the straw that would break the camel's back. Then our faces really would be red. You know, how would we even show up at the UN meetings if something happened to Harry and Meghan? You know, people looking at the UK and industries collapsing, people's purchase power is falling through the floor, violent crime is going through the roof. There is total social and cultural disarray. Everything's falling apart. But the one thing we can say is that Harry and Meghan are all right, okay? And if we lose that, we're screwed.
I would love reconciliation with my family. There's no point in continuing to fight anymore. As I said, life is precious. I don't know how much longer my father has. He won't speak to me because of this security stuff.
I honestly, I don't know how deliberate anything Harry does or says is, to be honest. I don't feel like he's at the wheel, really. He's kind of a shell-shocked husk of a man, really. But that is insane. I don't know, right? But from what he just said there, he's kind of saying to the world that his dad's terminally ill. When the official line is he had cancer, he was treated, and now he's okay. That is mental. He thinks that the reason his family won't speak to him is just because of the security detail. Can you not remember any of the last 5 years? How many ayahuasca trips to Bolivia have you taken? You know, it's absolutely crazy. And I must reiterate there, that really did sound ominous, didn't it? You wouldn't say that about a family member, would you? If they're being treated for cancer and the official story is they're all right, you wouldn't go to the world, well, we don't know how long he's got left. Even if they were being treated now, you wouldn't say that. It's a crazy thing to say. It's emotionally blackmaily. In another part of the interview, instead of calling his kids, he said, my father's grandchildren. It's like, like I say, I don't really know what's going on up there in Harry's head. I don't think there's very much going on up there, and I don't know how much of it he processes like a normal functioning adult. But it's wild.
But it would be nice to reconcile. As I learned through the First Nations throughout Canada, because of the Invictus Games, their goal in life was always truth and reconciliation. And I turned around to them in many conversations and I said, right, but reconciliation can't come without truth. Well, I've now found out the truth. I've shared some of it with you today. A lot of it exists out there, whether people choose to ignore it or not. You know, so it would be nice to have that reconciliation part now. If they don't want that, that's entirely up to them.
That's a conversation he had many, many times in Canada during the Invictus Games. Nice little plug there. I don't... Truth and reconciliation. Ugh, yeah, I can imagine that on the ayahuasca bong or whatever you use to ingest all those hallucinogens. Burn.
And now that this court battle is over, do you feel you will be able to approach your father and speak about some of those issues?
I mean, no, I don't think he would ever want to talk about it. I think he would just push it aside, and the argument will continue to be this is a government decision. It may well be a government decision, but how did they reach that decision? You know, when the Ravitch, the first place that they went to was the palace to understand what it is that the royal household and what the royal family want for me.
Christ almighty, he's just one of those problem family members that eventually everyone stops answering the phone to. You know, it's like you have to have the same conversations over and over again, and eventually you just get tired of treading on eggshells, trying not to trigger them, because they want to talk about themselves and how they've been treated and stuff. It's like, oh my God, you left the family company, right? You can't have all the stuff that the other people have, who are having to live with no freedom at all. They're having to do all these bloody functions, cutting ribbons all the time. They get the police security, okay? You don't, because you're in another country earning millions on Spotify or whatever you're fucking doing, okay? That's it. We can't keep having the conversation. How did they reach that decision? We explained! It's got to stop. That is why they don't want to speak to you, Harry. They just can't stand the sound of you, right? The husky, droning voice. Why? What are your motivations? Who's behind this? History's repeating itself. Shut the fuck up. Nobody cares. That's it. That's it. I haven't mentioned, by the way, in the video, have you heard the peacocks in the background? The Montecito peacocks in the background as he whines about his life in a mansion in Montecito, California. He's like, what a metaphor.
For me, and only me, there has to be a royal obligation in order to receive protection on UK soil. And I think that speaks volumes.
Oh boy, it sure does speak volumes, but I don't think you're gonna get any of them. Again, sick burn. I can't be asked. I just can't waste any more time on Harry and Meghan. I haven't touched them for about a year, except Meghan last month. I did a video on her, didn't I? With the new podcast. I can't do it anymore. It's too much. It's too... Right? They're too annoying. But I did enjoy today's video. If you enjoyed today's video at any point, you know, I'm not saying you have to enjoy the whole 25-minute show, though you should have, really. If you did enjoy it at any point, give the video a like. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. What are you doing here this late in the day? And what else? Yes, follow me on social media on X. I'm on Instagram. Follow all of that to find out when I'm bringing out a new video. And what else? Yeah, my Patreon link is under this video too, if you want to get some access to some exclusive videos that I make from time to time, which can't go on YouTube. That's not a... It's Patreon, it's not... Yeah, all right. You get it. You know what? You know the score. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
How many of us feel battered, helpless, in the face of the seemingly endless stream of disasters and devastation. I understand.